Chapter 223. Chapter 180. Mystic Moon Demon Core, Xianxia in peril. Woof woof. His eyes were full of gratitude, conveying his delight. Chang'an smiled, patting his head and telling him to get some rest. Then he turned to look at the profound moon, cat demon within the array. Under the combined assault of the array and the evil soul, the cat demon was now covered in wounds, and its breathing was faint. It was barely clinging to life. But its face was still filled with ferocity. With a mouth full of blood, it continuously snarled at the evil soul. But the evil soul was even more vicious. Die! The evil soul roared as the black mist roiling around it coalesced into a pitch-black long spear and stabbed down hard. Slick. The strike instantly pierced the cat demon's skull. It let out a wretched howl and died. It's finally dead. Chang'an slowly let out a breath of relief. He recalled the evil soul, and holding a sharp blade, he walked over to the cat demon's corpse. With a crack, he sliced open the cat demon's skull. A moment later, a very special demon core appeared in Chang'an's hand. The demon core was a translucent white, glowing faintly as if condensed from endless moonlight. It was completely free of any bloody scent, and the power contained within was incredibly gentle. If used for alchemy, it would require almost no special processing. It was a superior choice for alchemy. I finally got it. Joy spread across Chang'an's face, a trace of excitement appearing in his eyes. The main purpose of this trip had been achieved. After this, as long as nothing unexpected happened, he would most likely obtain a high-quality foundation establishment pill. Chang'an took a few deep breaths, suppressing his emotions. He knew it wasn't time to celebrate just yet. He hadn't left the Black Dragon Mountain range. Anything could still happen. I need to leave quickly. With a flicker of his body, he retrieved the array flags and array treasures from the void, swiftly putting away the 4 sets of arrays. Then he collected the cat demon's corpse and cleaned up all the bloodstains. After finishing all of this, Chang'an quickly sped away, leaving the area. 2 days later at dusk. By the bank of a clear stream, Chang'an sat cross-legged, taking a short rest. The return trip had been quite smooth. He hadn't encountered any danger. After 2 days of recovery, Dahuang's injuries had mostly healed, and he was back to his lively, energetic self. He leaped into the stream, caught 2 plump green fish, and brought them to Chang'an. Well done. Chang'an smiled, took the fish, and cooked them with his spirit fire. The man and his dog quickly finished the 2 fish. A moment later, Chang'an set off again, traveling through the night. For an ordinary cultivator, the Black Dragon Mountain range was much more dangerous at night than during the day. But Chang'an's strength had already surpassed the ordinary category. He himself was the greatest danger in this area, so he didn't need to worry too much. Before he knew it, the night had deepened. That night at midnight, a golden light appeared before Chang'an's eyes as usual. Divination has been refreshed. Today's divination, Auspicious. On your way back, you discover Xianxia being hunted by a foundation establishment powerhouse from the Cyan Cloud sect. You intervene, rescue her, kill her opponent, and obtain many treasures. Seeing the content of this divination, Chang'an froze. He stopped moving. He carefully read the entire divination again. Xianxia is being hunted. Chang'an's brows furrowed. How could Xianxia have provoked a foundation establishment powerhouse from the Cyan Cloud sect? Could it be because of Cao Xiaolong? No matter what, Xianxia can't die. Chang'an made up his mind. After all, he still needed Xianxia to perform alchemy for him. The quality of the materials he had for the foundation establishment pill was simply too high. He didn't trust any other Tier 2 alchemist with them. The next day, Chang'an continued on his original route. Along the way, he released Ziohai and Dahuang, ordering them to keep an eye on their surroundings. Time ticked by, and it was soon midday. Just then, Dahuang suddenly rushed over from a distance to report something to Chang'an. You found signs of a fight. Chang'an's expression grew solemn, and he immediately had Dahuang lead the way. A moment later, he arrived at the foot of a mountain. Here, countless plants had been burned to charcoal, and the ground was riddled with holes. Evidently, a foundation establishment great cultivator skilled in fire techniques had fought here. Could I be too late? Chang'an's gaze sharpened as he spotted a patch of dried blood. The aura from the blood was Zhang Qingqing's. Zhang Qingqing is formidable in magical combat. She shouldn't die so easily. Xiaohai Dawang keeps searching. With a flicker of his body, Li Chang'an continued along his planned route. About a quarter of an hour later, Dawang once again discovered a battleground. The traces of fire techniques in this area were even more terrifying. The ground was scorched black, its original appearance almost unrecognizable. Li Chang'an found more bloodstains, which again belonged to Zhang Qingqing. In addition, he also sensed the aura of water element magical power. Zhang Qingqing's opponent must be a foundation establishment powerhouse with a water spirit root. According to the 5 elements, water suppresses fire. Li Chang'an's brow was tightly furrowed, but he didn't linger. For a while after that, he successively discovered more than a dozen battle sites. Clearly, the battle had been going on for a long time. Zhang Qingqing was severely injured, fighting as she retreated to an unknown location. About an hour later, as Li Chang'an was speeding along, a sharp shout suddenly rang out in the distance. "Zhang Qingqing, do you think you can escape?" Hearing this voice, Li Chang'an stopped immediately. His expression was grave. He called over Xiaohai and Dawang, put them into his spirit beast bag, and then stealthily approached the source of the sound. Before long, 2 figures appeared in his line of sight. One of them was none other than Zhang Qingqing. At this moment, her pretty face was pale and she was covered in wounds. She stood atop a fiery red lotus spiritual artifact, protecting herself with a shield of fluttering petals. Across from her stood a woman in a long, water blue dress. The woman had a vicious expression and triangular eyes. Her body surged with water element magical power, and her attacks were extremely ruthless. She was also injured, but she was in much better condition than Zhang Qingqing. "Zhang Qingqing, I'm going to take your head as a birthday gift for junior brother Cao." Chapter 224, Chapter 181, Qingqing gives her heart, Chang'an's foundation establishment. Junior brother Cao. Li Chang'an overheard this. It confirmed his earlier suspicions. This unfamiliar foundation establishment cultivator from the Cyan Cloud sect was attacking Zhang Qingqing because of Cao Xiaolong. Li Chang'an didn't act immediately, observing for a moment instead. This woman's aura is even stronger than Zhang Qingqing's at her peak. Factoring in the elemental counters of the 5 elements, it's no wonder Zhang Qingqing is no match for her. Although Zhang Qingqing's skill in magical combat was formidable, she ultimately came from a mere foundation establishment family. The woman in the blue skirt, however, hailed from a major sect like the Cyan Cloud sect. Her cultivation technique, magic, and spiritual artifacts were all extraordinary, and her attacks were viciously sharp. If no one intervened, this battle would soon end with Zhang Qingqing's demise. After just a few breaths, a crack appeared on Zhang Qingqing's fire lotus spiritual artifact. Crack. The crack gradually widened, spreading out in all directions. The flower petals swirling around her body grew dim, losing their former luster. "Zhang Qingqing, die!" The woman in the blue skirt roared, her presence terrifying as her attacks grew even more ruthless. With a deafening boom, one of the dim petals suddenly shattered. Zhang Qingqing let out a muffled groan. A trickle of blood escaped the corner of her mouth, and her face grew even paler. In today's battle, she had suffered one injury after another, and had already exhausted all her tricks. Yet she still couldn't escape her pursuer. Now she was at the end of her rope. Boom! Another petal shattered. Zhang Qingqing's aura was weak, and she struggled to hold on. A realization dawned on her. Today was likely the day she would die. At this moment of life and death, scenes from her past flashed through her mind. She had been a genius since childhood, and her family had placed great hopes in her. Everyone said she would certainly achieve foundation establishment success, become the next matriarch, and support the Zhang family's glory for another 200 years. And she had not failed those expectations. She silently shouldered countless pressures and responsibilities, suppressed all her fatigue, and walked step by step to where she was today. The word family was a heavy burden she had to carry her entire life. It was just that. At some point, a slowly walking figure had appeared amidst the phantom-like, fleeting stream of her memories. That figure's talent wasn't outstanding, yet he always managed to surprise her. Unconsciously, he had squeezed his way into her dull and busy world, leaving an indelible mark. She even began to look forward to it. What surprise would await her the next time she saw him? Unfortunately, there would be no next time. Boom! The fire lotus spiritual artifact completely shattered, turning into a rain of fire that burned as it fell to the earth. Xianxia's body fell along with it, like a wilting red leaf. In that instant, her mind went blank for a moment, and she finally saw the blurry figure in her memory clearly. Li Chang'an. It's me. Li Chang'an caught her, landing gently on the peak of a high mountain. The mountain wind blew gently, bringing a refreshing coolness. It brought Xianxia back to her senses. Her red lips parted slightly, her pale, beautiful face filled with disbelief as her gaze fell upon Li Chang'an's cheek. At this moment, Li Chang'an had an elegant and refined temperament, gentle as jade yet tinged with resilience and a sense of world weariness, like an ancient, evergreen tree that had weathered the ages. Just by sensing his aura, she could feel an indescribable sense of peace. She wanted to savor the feeling for a moment longer. But Li Chang'an had already set her down. "Young lady, are you all right?" "I'm not okay." Xianxia averted her gaze and wiped the blood from the corner of her mouth. "Then you should rest and recover." Li Chang'an had already scanned her physical condition. Her injuries weren't as severe as he had thought. She was just completely exhausted, nearly running on empty. If she didn't recover properly, it could leave lasting side effects and impact her future path of cultivation. Xianxia's mind was in turmoil. She looked at Li Chang'an again, her expression incredibly complex. "Li Chang'an, why are you here?" "Same as you. I came into the mountains to hunt demons." Li Chang'an replied calmly. Just then, the woman in the blue skirt drew near, her body surging with magical power and an astonishing killing intent. "So it was you, Li Chang'an." "You know me." Li Chang'an's expression remained unchanged as he looked over calmly. The blue-skirted woman said coldly, "You are Junior Brother Cao's heart demon. Of course I recognize you." Li Chang'an asked again, "May I ask your name?" "A dead man has no need to know my name." The blue-skirted woman's face was savage, and her voice was shrill, making no attempt to hide her killing intent and disgust for Li Chang'an. In her eyes, a mere chi-refining cultivator could be crushed with a wave of her hand. "I was going to kill Xianxia first and then you, but I didn't expect you to come rushing to your own death. Perfect. I'll take both of your heads and make them appear to celebrate Junior Brother Cao's birthday." Celebrating a birthday with severed heads, isn't that a bit inauspicious? Li Chang'an's tone was nonchalant. Under the oppressive aura of a Foundation establishment great cultivator, his expression didn't change in the slightest. His demeanor only made the blue-skirted woman despise him more. She wanted to see Li Chang'an panicking and begging for mercy, to record it with a memory stone and give it to Cao Xiaolong to help resolve his heart demon. However, Li Chang'an, a mere ant of a chi-refining cultivator, showed none of the terror an ant should have. All the more reason for him to die. "Li Chang'an, you will undoubtedly die today." "What a coincidence, that's what I was about to say to you." Li Chang'an smiled faintly. Behind him, a trace of worry flashed across Xianxin's pale, beautiful face. "Li Chang'an, can you handle this?" "Of course, you just focus on your healing, young lady." With that, Li Chang'an took out the Cyan Yuan bell. With a thought, the Cyan Yuan bell spun in his hand and instantly grew countless times larger, transforming into a transparent great bell that shielded Xianxin. Chapter 225, Chapter 181, Qinking's Affection, Chang'an's Foundation Establishment. Xianxin was suddenly taken aback. The quality of this Cyan Yuan bell was even higher than the fire lotus she had used before. How did a mere chi-refining cultivator like Li Chang'an get this? However, what came next was even more shocking. Li Chang'an slapped his storage pouch, and a streak of spiritual light shot out, transforming into a shockingly powerful puppet that charged menacingly toward the blue-skirted woman. A Tier 2 puppet. The blue-skirted woman's expression changed drastically as she retreated at top speed. The puppet's speed surged, and in an instant it was before her, throwing a simple, unadorned punch. Boom! The blue-skirted woman's face paled as she was sent flying backward by the blow. Only then did she finally realize something was wrong. She had tried to use her magical power to block the Tier 2 puppet's attack, but the magical power in her body felt as if it had frozen, making it incredibly difficult to circulate. She couldn't muster a defense in time. "Crap, I've been poisoned." Horrified, the blue-skirted woman hurriedly took out various antitoxic pills from her storage pouch. But it was too late. The only reason Li Chang'an had bothered to waste a few words with her was to stall for time. By now, the various Tier 2 toxins released by the 10,000 poison goo had already invaded her meridians and internal organs. In just a few moments, the poison would take full effect and kill her. Li Chang'an, the blue-skirted woman cried out, her voice no longer shrill but now much hoarser. She stared daggers at Li Chang'an, looking as if she wanted to tear him to shreds on the spot. You're a poison cultivator from the 5 poison wander lineage. You misunderstand, Your Excellency. I am just an ordinary loose cultivator, unacquainted with the 5 poison wanderer lineage. You? The blue-skirted woman was beside herself with rage, her twisted face filled with killing intent and hatred. Her figure blurred as she lunged at Li Chang'an, wanting to take him down with her before the poison killed her completely. However, before she could reach the mountaintop, she crashed into a large net. The surrounding space seemed to turn into a water surface as ripples suddenly appeared, weaving together into a large net that bound her tightly. The Jade water ripple net. No matter how she struggled, she could not break free. As time passed, her body was steadily consumed by the potent poison, and she gradually lost the strength to struggle. Come. With a casual wave of his hand, Li Chang'an summoned her before him. He asked calmly, Your Excellency, perhaps you can tell me your name now. Li Chang'an, I am Miao Qianshui, a law enforcement elder of the Cyan Cloud sect. If you dare to kill me, the Cyan Cloud sect will never let you go. So it is Taoist Miao, a pleasure to meet you. Li Chang'an's expression remained unchanged as he cupped his hands in a mock salute. He mused for a moment. The Cyan Cloud sect is a golden core influence. Killing one of its law enforcement elders might bring me unnecessary trouble. What are you scared? Miao Qianshui sneered. If you're scared, then immediately give me. Bam! Before she could finish her sentence, Li Chang'an suddenly brought his foot down, crushing her skull. If I've already made an enemy, I might as well make a dead one. With another casual wave, he took her storage pouch and treasures. At the same time, Da Huang, hidden underground, shook the venerable soul banner and collected her soul. Li Chang'an cast a few talismans, burning her corpse to ashes and erasing his and Zhang Qingqing's auras from the area. He turned to Zhang Qingqing and said, Young mistress, it's not safe to linger here. Let's leave first. At this moment, Zhang Qingqing's heart was in turmoil, unable to calm down, as if a monstrous wave had crashed within her. A chi refining killing a foundation establishment. Such a thing rarely happened in the cultivation immortality realm. Only a very small number of celestial prides from major sects and great noble families could accomplish such a feat. But Li Chang'an was just an unremarkable loose cultivator with no background and no exceptional talent, yet he had done it. And he had done it so easily. It was almost effortless, as if he had merely crushed an ant. After the kill, there wasn't the slightest hint of joy on his face. It was as if this wasn't the first time he had done something like this. Zhang Qingqing stared at him in disbelief, her red lips slightly parted. Li Chang'an, you. We can talk later, let's get out of here now. Li Chang'an grabbed her arm and flew away from the area. He quickly went to the previous area where they had fought and erased Zhang Qingqing's aura. After that, he repeated the process. He erased Zhang Qingqing's aura from every single battle site. After doing all this, he slowly let out a breath but didn't let his guard down. Young mistress, you must keep this matter buried in your heart. Don't speak of it to anyone. Neither of us can afford to face the wrath of the Cyan Cloud sect. I understand. Zhang Qingqing was still in a state of shock. Judging by how practiced Li Chang'an is, he must do this often. Just how many cultivators has he killed before? At that moment, Zhang Qingqing had too many questions, but there was no time to ask. The two of them raced away, not daring to rest for even a moment. They fled for a full day and night. They were now far from the place where Miao Qianshui had fallen. Only then did Li Chang'an finally feel safe. Young mistress, let's rest here for a bit. He casually shot out a few bursts of magical power, blasting a cave into the side of a nearby cliff. The two entered to rest and recover. After a while, Zhang Qingqing's breathing steadied considerably. Her gaze shifted, her eyes gentle, and lingered on Li Chang'an for a long time. This was the first time she had ever observed Li Chang'an so intently. Li Chang'an sensed her gaze and opened his eyes. Young mistress, why are you staring at me? Have I changed from before? He was well aware that his disposition had changed significantly after he started practicing the ancient wood health cultivation technique. Right after he had switched cultivation techniques, even his two spirit beasts had found him somewhat unfamiliar. No, I was just thinking about what happened and got a little lost in thought. Chapter 226, Chapter 181, Qinking's Heart, Chang'an's Foundation Establishment. Zhang Qingqing hurriedly averted her gaze, a blush creeping onto her pretty face. She immediately changed the subject to their demon beast hunt. In truth, with her strength, she could have escaped Miao Qianshui even if she was no match for him. However, she had already been injured by a Tier 2 water element demon beast before Miao Qianshui even attacked. It was a water cloud turtle. The power contained within its demon core is very gentle, perfect for alchemy. Zhang Qingqing sounded a little regretful. She hadn't been able to kill the water cloud turtle. Instead, she had been seriously injured fighting it, and was then ambushed by Miao Qianshui while she was healing. Chang'an, once I've recovered, if you help me with your puppets and poison technique, we might be able to kill that water cloud turtle. There's no need. With a thought, Li Chang'an made a lustrous white demon core appear in his hand. Seeing this demon core, Zhang Qingqing's gaze froze. The calm she had just managed to regain was once again thrown into turmoil. From this demon core, she could clearly sense the aura of that profound mooncat demon. Chang'an, you killed that profound mooncat demon. She took a deep breath, asking in disbelief. Li Chang'an responded with a smile. No, I asked the senior to take action and help me kill it. Chang'an. No. That senior you mentioned, was it you? Young miss, you're overthinking it. How could I have that kind of power? Li Chang'an shook his head repeatedly, denying it outright. Hearing this, Zhang Qingqing pressed her red lips together and asked no more questions. She reached out and took the demon core. She sensed it carefully. A moment later, she said softly, this demon core is indeed very suitable for alchemy. If the quality of the other materials is also good, I'm 50% confident I can refine high-quality foundation establishment pills. 50%. Li Chang'an grew thoughtful. He knew that Zhang Qingqing liked to hold back a little, rarely speaking in absolutes. Since she says 50%, the real probability is most likely over 70%. At this thought, Li Chang'an immediately took out a large quantity of main and auxiliary medicines for the foundation establishment pills from his storage pouch. Although he hadn't deliberately collected these materials lately, they were present in almost all of his enemies' storage pouches, so he had already gathered enough for a full 5 sets of foundation establishment pills. Young miss, take your pick. Chang'an Yu. Seeing this huge pile of materials, a trace of shock flashed through Zhang Qingqing's beautiful eyes once more. She was stunned for a long moment before she couldn't help but ask, Chang'an, did you rob the treasure vault of Yellow Crane Immortal City? No, it was just a stroke of good fortune. A stroke of good fortune. Zhang Qingqing really didn't know what to say, so she decided to say nothing at all. She slowly calmed her emotions, centered herself, and began to carefully select the materials with her expertise in the alchemy Tao. About a quarter of an hour later, she selected the highest quality set from among the materials. Using these high-quality materials for alchemy would make the probability of refining high-quality foundation establishment pills much higher. Chang'an, after we get back, I'll immediately help you refine the foundation establishment pills. There's no rush, young miss, you should heal your injuries first. Li Chang'an didn't want any accidents happening. Zhang Qingqing's injuries weren't severe. With some spirit pills and spirit medicines, she would recover quickly. He could afford to wait that little bit of time. After all, he had already waited for so many years. Zhang Qingqing gave a soft smile. All right, Chang'an, I'll do as you say, but you saved my life this time. I still don't know how I can possibly repay you. Li Chang'an didn't overthink it and replied directly. Young miss, with your intelligence, you should know what I want. You? Zhang Qingqing's beautiful eyes, shimmering like water, met Li Chang'an's for a moment. After a moment, she sighed softly, and an inheritance jade scroll appeared in her hand. Take it, this is a Tier 2 middle-grade alchemy inheritance. Many thanks, young miss. Li Chang'an smiled and took it without any ceremony. He had been coveting this alchemy inheritance for a long time. Back in Qingham Marketplace, he had wanted to obtain the Zhang family's alchemy inheritance, but his strength was too weak back then, and he wasn't qualified to possess such a thing. Now the inheritance was finally in his hands. Chang'an held the jade scroll and sent his divine sense into it, perusing its contents carefully. It really is an alchemy inheritance. His attainments in alchemy had long reached Tier 1 peak. With this inheritance, he could soon attempt to break through to Tier 2 and become a Tier 2 alchemist. However, everything would have to wait until after his foundation establishment. Within the inheritance, he soon found the chapter on foundation establishment pills. So, there isn't just one pill formula for the foundation establishment pill, but more than 10. The main and auxiliary medicines can all be substituted with other spirit medicines that have similar properties. Chang'an was a little surprised. This was truly eye-opening. The pill formula circulated in the outside world was simply the most widely known version, and the one with the easiest to gather materials. Furthermore, although the foundation establishment pill was only a Tier 2 middle-grade elixir, its refining difficulty was comparable to a Tier 2 top-grade pill. Because this elixir pill was so important, pill masters would be under immense psychological pressure when refining it, which would in turn double the difficulty. Chang'an became somewhat engrossed, but he quickly withdrew his divine sense. The Black Dragon mountain range was fraught with peril, and no place to be studying the alchemy Tao. Afterward, he began to take stock of the spoils from this battle. As a foundation establishment cultivator from a major sect, Xianxia was naturally wealthy. In his storage pouch, there was a pile of over 10,000 low-grade spirit stones. There were also many treasures, but most of them were water element treasures. Chang'an couldn't use them himself. They could only be given to the profound water turtle. Before long, with another thought, he took out a water-blue longsword. This was the very longsword that had shattered Zheng Qinking's Fire Lotus spiritual artifact. A Tier 2 middle-grade spiritual artifact, the profound water sword. Chang'an held the treasure sword and gave it a light shake. A ripple of light flowed along the blade, and one could faintly hear the sound of crashing waves. Chapter 227, Chapter 181, Qinking gives her heart, Chang'an's foundation establishment. Inwardly, the profound water turtle immediately conveyed feelings of joy and desire. You could tell. It really liked this treasure sword. Chang'an smiled, put the sword away, and planned to give it to the profound water turtle when he got back. A moment later, another spiritual artifact appeared in his hand. A Tier 2 low-grade spiritual artifact, the Jade wave skirt. This was the very same water-blue long skirt Xianxia had worn, a defensive spiritual artifact. Though it looked soft, its defense was even better than Chang'an's old 5-element spirit armor. This time, however, the profound water turtle transmitted no emotion. Chang'an sent a sound transmission. Ziohai, don't you want this treasure? The profound water turtle remained silent. Chang'an considered it. The profound water turtle's own shell provides enough defense. It really doesn't need another defensive spiritual artifact. Da Huang, on the other hand, has more than enough offense but lacks defense. But this Jade wave skirt is a water element treasure, so it isn't suitable for him. Feeling it was a shame, Chang'an put the Jade wave skirt away, planning to get rid of it at the black market when he had time. After a little while, his eyes lit up as he took out a crystal-like gem. A foundation establishment spiritual object, the 7-colored glazed tears. The gem was completely translucent and contained a drop of 7-colored treasure liquid. It shimmered brilliantly, looking almost ethereal, and could increase the success rate of foundation establishment by 5%. It could be used in conjunction with other foundation establishment spiritual objects. The effects could stack. This was precisely why Chang'an was so happy. These 7-colored glazed tears, combined with the water and fire 2-life flower he already possessed, would be enough to raise his foundation establishment success rate to 30%. This is a truly wonderful surprise. A smile appeared on Chang'an's face as he carefully put it away. He calmed himself and continued to take inventory of the remaining items. Besides the various treasures, the storage pouch also contained a large number of cultivation techniques and magic arts. Unfortunately, most were of the water attribute and thus useless to Chang'an. However, Chang'an did find quite a few written insights on foundation establishment. These insights almost all came from previous generations of Cyan Cloud sect elders and would be of great benefit to him. I'll read through all these foundation establishment insights before I go back to attempt it. He placed these insights on Foundation establishment into a separate storage pouch. About an hour and a half later, the inventory was complete. Chang'an selected a few treasures that he deemed suspicious. With a flicker, he used an escape technique to go deep underground and discarded them there. After doing so, he returned to the surface and hurriedly left with Xianxia. In the following days, the two of them sped along their way, encountering little danger. One evening, they finally left the Black Dragon mountain range, and the omnipresent demon Qi instantly vanished. Chang'an felt his entire body relax, and he felt considerably lighter. Soon, the two of them passed by the black market. Chang'an asked Xianxia to wait outside for him for a moment. He disguised his aura and appearance, entered the black market, and found Luo Beidong. "Taoist Luo, I must trouble you to post a message for me." "What message?" "Ancient wood evergreen." "Ancient wood evergreen," just those 3 words. Luo Beidong was surprised. "What kind of message is that?" Could it be that these 3 words hold some special meaning, meant to attract a specific person? Chang'an didn't explain further, simply saying, "Taoist Luo, if someone comes looking for you because of this message, just have them leave their contact information. If you handle this well, I will reward you handsomely." As he spoke, Chang'an took out a treasure. As was his custom, he paid a portion of the reward up front. Luo Beidong's eyes instantly lit up. This partial payment alone was worth far more than the entire reward for any previous task he'd taken on. "Taoist Li, rest assured, I will do everything in my power to handle this." He accepted the treasure and made a solemn promise. He even swore an oath on his Tao heart right then and there. Seeing this, Chang'an felt at ease. Just as he was about to leave, Luo Beidong suddenly asked, "Taoist Li, have you heard? Something happened recently at your withered wood cliff." Chang'an stopped in his tracks. What happened? Although he had joined Withered Wood Cliff, he rarely interacted with its tribulation cultivators and had always kept to himself. To him, this identity was merely a useful tool. Luo Beidong sent a sound transmission. "The Withered Wood Cliff Master is in trouble. His Tier 2 spirit plant seems to be out of control. It nearly devoured him." The spirit plant rebelled. Chang'an was surprised. Logically, as long as a spirit contract has been signed, the chance of rebellion should be minuscule. Luo Beidong added, "I heard that the demonic spirit plant never wanted to follow the Withered Wood Cliff Master in the first place. It was just extremely weak at the time and was forcibly subdued by him." Forcibly subdued. A thought struck Chang'an. He suddenly recalled something. In the secret realm, the cultivator on the White Bone ship had warned him that a heaven and earth spirit root cannot be forcibly subdued. It must be won over through one's own beliefs. Could it be that the strange spirit plant belonging to the Withered Wood Cliff Master is a heaven and earth spirit root? He immediately asked, "What's the situation now? What about the spirit plant and the Withered Wood Cliff Master?" "I don't know either." Luo Beidong shook his head. "Rumor has it the Withered Wood Cliff Master went into the Black Dragon mountain range, searching for a way to completely suppress the spirit plant. Someone who saw him said he was emaciated, like a walking skeleton, a truly frightening sight. Taoist Luo, please help me find out more information about this." "Of course." Luo Beidong didn't ask for any payment. After all, he was quite curious about the matter himself. In fact, many cultivators in the black market were dying to know. What exactly was this spirit plant that could stand against a Foundation establishment great cultivator? "Oh right, Taoist Li. It seems Yan Yuan, the master of Blood Beast Valley, has gone off to explore a secret realm again. He hasn't been seen in over a month, so you can relax a little for the time being." Chapter 228, Chapter 181, Qianxia's Devotion, Chang'an's Foundation Establishment. "All right, I understand." Chang'an smiled, but didn't tell him the whole truth. He then found Hu Yu, the elder cultivator who had first led him into Withered Woodcliff, and asked him about the Withered Woodcliff master's situation. The news Hu Yu gave him was more or less the same as what Luo Beidong had said. The Withered Woodcliff master had indeed entered the Black Dragon mountain range. But as for his specific whereabouts, Hu Yu had no idea. After a while, Chang'an left the black market. He reverted to his original aura and appearance, then returned to Yellow Crane Immortal City with Xianxia. The two parted ways in front of Xianxia's residence. Before they parted, Xianxia made a solemn promise. Chang'an, give me 3 days. In 3 days I'll be fully recovered. All right. Chang'an was very calm and told her not to rush either. When it came to foundation establishment, the more one rushed, the more likely they were to make mistakes. He returned to his residence and set up the array again. After that, Chang'an stopped cultivating. He didn't go out to visit friends and refused all visitors, hanging a sign indicating he was in seclusion. He cast aside all trivial matters and quietly read through the various notes on foundation establishment he had found in Xianxia's storage pouch. 3 days passed in a flash. Early that morning, Xianxia came to visit, her injuries now completely healed. Chang'an, I'm going to start refining the pill today. Would you like to watch? That was my intention. Observing a senior's alchemy process was a great help to one's own alchemy skill. Naturally, Chang'an wasn't going to pass up this opportunity. The reason Xianxia had invited him to watch was to put his mind at ease, showing that she wouldn't embezzle any of his excellent quality spirit medicines. Before long, the two arrived at Xianxia's residence. Her residence had a dedicated alchemy room. A grand, ancient, fiery red pill furnace stood in the very center of the alchemy room. Chang'an watched closely. Xianxia's expression was grave as she approached the pill furnace. With a wave of her fair hand, a large quantity of materials for the foundation establishment pill flew out of her storage pouch, hovering to one side of the pill furnace. Immediately after, a roaring pill fire ignited. When the time was right, Xianxia immediately manipulated the Tier 2 demon core, slowly placing it in the very center of the pill furnace. Not long after, under Chang'an's watchful gaze, the Tier 2 demon core began to slowly melt, turning into a fist-sized ball of shimmering white liquid. During this process, a faint gray-white mist rose, which were the impurities from within the demon core. A moment later, the blood dragon vine, one of the 3 main ingredients, was tossed into the pill furnace. In just an instant, it was refined into a thumb-sized glob of blood-red medicinal liquid. Under Xianxia's control, the 2 liquids slowly drew closer and merged, forming a single ball of pale red medicinal liquid. Next, the other main ingredient, the purple jade ginseng, was also tossed into the pill furnace. After repeating the previous process, a hint of purple was added to the ball of medicinal liquid. Xianxia's refining technique is consistent with what's recorded in the legacy texts. She seems fairly relaxed right now, so there probably won't be any accidents. Chang'an watched with rapt attention, occasionally pausing to ponder. After all 3 main ingredients were refined, Xianxia began to refine the numerous auxiliary medicines, turning them into droplets of medicinal liquid that merged together. Finally, a ball of dark brown medicinal liquid appeared inside the pill furnace. With a thought, she split it into 3 parts. The 3 portions of liquid boiled continuously within the pill furnace, bubbles forming on their surfaces. They gradually shrank and finally solidified, turning into 3 round elixir pills. In an instant, a rich pill fragrance wafted out. A look of delight appeared on Chang'an's face. The pills are a success. Xianxia also smiled, slowly letting out a breath of relief. Chang'an, I have fulfilled my duty. With a beckoning motion of her fair hand, the 3 foundation establishment pills flew out of the pill furnace, each landing in a translucent small jade bottle. Among them was one high-quality foundation establishment pill. It could increase the success rate of foundation establishment by 25%. The quality of the other 2 was also quite impressive, better than ordinary foundation establishment pills. Chang'an, with 3 chances, are you confident? 1 will be enough, Chang'an said with a smile. The high-quality foundation establishment pill, plus his foundation establishment spiritual object. The total increase in success rate was already over 55%. Moreover, he already possessed a Tier 2 physique, and his divine sense had long since reached the foundation establishment level. He had no need to worry about the essence and divine aspects of the breakthrough. Under these circumstances, he couldn't imagine any possibility of failure. If I'm really that unlucky and fail unexpectedly, I'll just try again. I have extra foundation establishment pills and more Tier 2 demon cores anyway. Chang'an was very confident. Even if he failed 3 times in a row, it wouldn't matter. Xianxia chuckled. Chang'an, if you really succeed on the first try, would you be willing to sell one of the remaining 2 foundation establishment pills to me? Of course. Li Chang'an promised immediately. He had no descendants and had taken no apprentices. He was all alone. His two good brothers, Su Fugui and Chu Danyu, both had their own opportunities and didn't need to buy a foundation establishment pill from him. Selling the extra foundation establishment pill to Zhang Qingqing was the perfect solution. Not long after, Li Chang'an returned to his residence and began his final preparations. Zhang Qingqing came as well to act as his protector, ensuring no accidents occurred before his foundation establishment. As evening approached, Su Yuyan suddenly came to visit. "Brother Li, are you home?" Her voice was filled with joy, as if something wonderful had happened. Not long after she spoke, the courtyard gate slowly swung open. Su Yuyan was taken aback. It wasn't Li Chang'an who appeared behind the gate, but Zhang Qingqing. Zhang Qingqing smiled. "Taoist Su, please come in." "Oh, all right." Su Yuyan entered the courtyard with a puzzled expression. Li Chang'an put down the foundation establishment notes in his hand and looked up at her. "Yuyan, what is it?" "Brother Li, I have a way to get an inferior grade foundation establishment pill. It can increase the success rate by about 15%. Do you need it?" Chapter 229, Chapter 181, Qingqing's Heart, Chang'an's Foundation Establishment. Su Yuyan explained the purpose of her visit. Foundation establishment pills were hard to find, and this inferior grade pill was the best item she could manage to get for now. Li Chang'an wore a gentle expression as he told her, "Yuyan, you don't need to worry about my foundation establishment. Taoist Zheng has already refined a proper foundation establishment pill for me." That's wonderful." Su Yuyan was stunned for a moment, but a look of joy quickly spread across her pretty face. She hurriedly asked, "Brother Li, when do you plan to attempt foundation establishment?" "Let's make it tomorrow." "Tomorrow, but your cultivation." Before Su Yuyan could finish, she suddenly felt an aura of the qi refining ninth layer emanating from Li Chang'an. This wasn't the aura of someone who had just reached the qi refining ninth layer. He had clearly been accumulating power at this level for many years. Her eyes showed surprise, but even more so delight. "Brother Li, I knew it. You've been concealing some of your cultivation. The immortal path is treacherous. I had to be cautious." Li Chang'an replied with a smile. After exchanging a few more words, Su Yuyan decided to stay and stand guard for him, ensuring he wouldn't be disturbed. The next day, dawn broke and the sun rose in the east. Li Chang'an rented a Tier 2 top-grade cave mansion. With a calm expression, he stepped into the cave mansion and glanced back once. Outside the cave mansion, Zhang Qingqing and Su Yuyan were smiling, but a trace of worry lingered in their eyes. "Don't worry, there's no need for concern." With that, Li Chang'an gave a casual wave of his hand. The doors to the cave mansion closed. To be on the safe side, he followed his usual routine and set up a 4-layered grand array to protect himself. He also released his 2 spirit beasts. "Zio Hai Dahuang, you two watch the entrance. Don't let anyone in." The 2 spirit beasts nodded and sat on either side of the entrance, like a pair of guardian beasts. Li Chang'an walked into the depths of the cave mansion. The heaven and earth spiritual power here was extremely dense, having reached the level of Tier 2 top grade. He sat cross-legged and silently began to adjust his condition. Decades of arduous cultivation, all for the leap he was about to take today. At this moment, scenes from both his past and present lives suddenly flooded his mind. In those dreamlike memories, he saw the days of his difficult studies in his past life, as well as the hardships he faced in this life while seeking immortality. Countless old faces and stories flashed through his mind. Looking back, it all seemed like an illusion, a fleeting bubble that had vanished with the passage of time. "Haya." Li Chang'an took a deep breath and lit a stick of Bodhi incense. Wisps of fragrant smoke curled into the air. He emptied his mind of all stray thoughts. His heart became as calm as still water, leaving only the conviction to break through to foundation establishment. "Let's begin." Without a moment's hesitation, he swallowed all the items he had prepared for his breakthrough, including the foundation establishment pill and the foundation establishment spiritual objects, in a single gulp. "I must succeed in my foundation establishment this time." Clinging to this conviction, he activated the foundation establishment chapter of his ancient wood health cultivation technique and charged at the barrier with his full power. Boom! A tremor ran through his entire body. Dense heaven and earth spiritual power poured down from the crown of his head, violently surging through his physical body. This was the first barrier of foundation establishment, the physical body barrier. Anyone with hidden injuries, physical imperfections, or those who were old and frail with insufficient vitality would never pass this stage. In their youth, many cultivators fought frequently over resources, accumulating hidden injuries from their magical combat. As a result, they would ultimately fall at this very barrier. Chang'an had also fought frequently in this life. But he was always one to plan before acting, only making a move when he was certain of victory. He had almost never suffered an injury. Furthermore, his Tier 2 body refinement physique was enough to make him tower over countless other chi-refining cultivators. At this moment, it was like a towering ancient tree, standing firm and unmoving against the onslaught of violent spiritual power. This barrier posed no difficulty for him. He passed. In that instant, the skies outside the cave mansion roiled and changed. The heaven and earth spiritual power from all four directions gathered in a frenzy, forming a massive spiritual power vortex over 1,000 feet across. Seeing this, Xianxia and Su Yuyan exchanged a look, joy evident in both their eyes. He's passed the physical body barrier. Next up was the magic power barrier. This barrier required a cultivator's magical power to complete its transformation from a gaseous to a liquid state. The deeper one's reserves of magical power before foundation establishment, the easier this barrier was to overcome. The ancient wood health cultivation technique that Chang'an practiced was a top-grade technique, verging on earth grade. The magical power it cultivated was of extremely high quality, and his foundation far surpassed that of ordinary chi-refining loose cultivators. Moreover, he had never taken any tier-breaking elixirs before, so his own potential had not been diminished in the slightest. This barrier was practically a sure thing. Whoosh whoosh. Dense heaven and earth spiritual power surged into his dantian. Chang'an remained as steady as a mountain, circulating the foundation establishment technique from his cultivation technique to guide the spiritual power and continuously compress it. Inside his dantian, a hazy cyan mist gradually appeared, and it grew denser and denser. Time continued to pass. An unknown amount of time went by. The ever-denser mist gradually condensed into a single, cyan drop of liquid magical power, which then fell within his dantian. Drip. That single, soft sound declared that the magic power barrier was passed. Over the next several hours, drops of liquid magical power fell one by one, a total of 15, forming a small puddle in his dantian. Outside the cave mansion, the massive spiritual power vortex faltered for a moment. It didn't collapse suddenly, but began to slowly disperse. This sight brought even greater joy to Xianxia and Su Yuyan. He's passed the magic power barrier. Only the final barrier remained. The divine sense barrier. It was also the most unpredictable barrier. There was no known technique to temper one's divine sense. It simply grew stronger as a cultivator's power increased. It was rumored that methods for tempering divine sense existed in ancient times, but although the major sects had excavated countless secret realms, they had never found any divine sense secret techniques. By now, the celestial phenomenon had already attracted the attention of countless onlookers. More than half of the cultivators in Yellow Crane Immortal City had stopped what they were doing and were looking in this direction. Someone else is attempting foundation establishment. From the looks of it, they've passed the first two barriers and have reached the last one. Success or failure, it all comes down to this. The crowd had various thoughts, though most were merely observing. A few hoped he would succeed, seeking to bolster their own conviction for their future breakthroughs. Others were jealous, secretly cursing him to fail, some even fantasizing about rushing over to interfere. Of course, that was all it was, a fantasy. This was Yellow Crane Immortal City. To interfere with a foundation establishment attempt would be a slap in the face to the Yellow Crane Mountain lineage, an offense punishable by death. In a residence on the slopes of Yellow Crane Mountain, Saimarui stood with his hands behind his back, looking at the slowly dissipating spiritual power vortex on the horizon. This person passed the magic power barrier very smoothly. Their accumulation before foundation establishment was quite profound. I imagine the divine sense barrier won't be a problem. He remarked slowly, his gaze calm. It seems we're about to have another foundation establishment Taoist among us. I just wonder if this fellow Taoist is a loose cultivator or from one of the noble families. If they were a loose cultivator, it would be a good opportunity to form a connection. Recruiting them into the Yellow Crane Mountain lineage would be ideal. Not far away, in another residence, Kang also raised his head to watch the spiritual power vortex. Looks like they're going to make it. It's probably a loose cultivator, he thought to himself, planning to form an acquaintance. At the same time, outside Pei Yingyao's cave mansion, Jimenjian gazed at the sky, her face full of envy. Master, I have a feeling that person will succeed. So what if they succeed? So what if they fail? It's someone else's business and has nothing to do with you. Focus on your own cultivation. Pei Yingyao's cold voice rang out. She had remained cross-legged deep within her cave mansion, paying no attention at all to the breakthrough attempt. Time flew by, and before long dusk had fallen. Inside the cave mansion, Chang'an opened his eyes and slowly rose to his feet. A powerful aura emanated from his body. He smiled, feeling a power he had never known before. Foundation establishment, I've succeeded. After decades of cultivation, he had finally taken the most crucial step. From this day forward, it was no longer an obscure chi refining junior cultivator. A foundation establishment cultivation was enough to be considered an ancestor in most regions. At this moment, besides the increase in his power, the greatest change Chang'an felt was in his lifespan. A foundation establishment ancestor has a lifespan of 240 years. If I find some life-extending treasures, avoid conflict, and live a life of peaceful cultivation, living past 250 won't be a problem. And Chang'an's possession was a 10,000 years green that could extend one's life by 10 years. He had obtained this in the secret realm cave mansion. He was only 53 this year. Barring any accidents, he could live for another 200 years. His lifespan was now abundant. As long as I keep breaking through, one day I'll reach the legendary realm of eternal life. Chang'an already had a clear plan for the path beyond foundation establishment. After a moment of thought, he dismantled the arrays within the cave mansion and recalled his 2 spirit beasts into his spirit beast bag. Then, with a grand wave of his hand, the doors to the cave mansion shuddered and began to slowly swing open. The aura of his new foundation establishment cultivation instantly billowed out. At this dusk hour, with the sky painted in sunset hues, countless people felt this new aura. They all knew a new foundation establishment cultivator had been born. At that moment, a hearty laugh rang out from within the city. Mo Wenyuan of the Mo family here. Congratulations, fellow Taoist, on achieving foundation establishment. At the same time, several other voices called out from all directions. Jin Ming of the Jin family. Congratulations on your success, fellow Taoist. Kang of Yellow Crane Mountain. Congratulations, fellow Taoist, on your successful foundation. Before he could finish, Kang suddenly froze. This aura. Why is this aura so familiar? Chapter 230. Chapter 182. Reactions from all parties targeting the golden core. Kang froze the moment he felt the familiar aura. He never would have imagined it. The person achieving foundation establishment today was actually an acquaintance. Chang'an, how could it be him? Kang stared at the cave mansion, finding it both unbelievable and unacceptable. In his eyes, Chang'an was nothing more than a minor figure with poor talent. The only reason he had managed to survive their encounters was because he had a few foundation establishment cultivators protecting him. Without their protection, he could crush an ant like that with a flick of his wrist. But now, that ant had grown to stand at the same height as him. At that moment, he was not the only one who was shocked. In another residence, Saimarui had been planning to go and recruit the newly ascended foundation establishment cultivator. But before his foot had even left the courtyard, he froze. Chang'an. His expression changed drastically as he stared at the cave mansion. This was completely beyond his expectations. All this time, his path of cultivation had always prioritized stability. He never went out of his way to provoke powerful enemies. The last time he had acted, it was only because he had accepted a significant treasure from Cao Xiaolong, and his target was merely a chi-refining junior cultivator with mediocre talent. Even though he had failed, he had never apologized to Li Chang'an, nor had he ever considered mending their relationship. He was a Foundation establishment great cultivator, so why should he apologize to a chi refining ant? To think this tiny chi refining ant would one day soar into the heavens. Saimarui suddenly had a bad feeling. Although his cultivation was at the middle stage of Foundation establishment, still making him stronger than Li Chang'an, this matter was now beyond his control. It had already been difficult enough to kill Li Chang'an when he was at the chi refining stage. Now that he had achieved Foundation establishment, killing him would only be even harder. A flash of regret crossed Saimarui's mind. I shouldn't have been greedy for Cao Xiaolong's treasure. But what was done, and it was too late for regrets. Now, he either had to repair their relationship or find a way to crush Li Chang'an completely. Not far away, outside the cave mansion, Jai Menjian's face was filled with astonishment. Master, it's Li Chang'an. The aura of that Foundation establishment cultivator, it's Li Chang'an. Hello? Deep within the cave mansion, Pei Yingyao's eyes snapped open, a trace of surprise flashing within them. She walked out of the cave mansion and looked up at the rainbow-colored clouds filling the sky. Meanwhile, in a residence within the city suffused with Tier 2 spiritual power, Cao Xiaolong looked up abruptly. Li Chang'an. He clenched his fists tightly, his expression turning utterly grim. From this day forward, Li Chang'an officially stood in the same major realm as him. Cao Xiaolong couldn't help but recall what Li Chang'an had once said. Once he achieved Foundation establishment, he would no longer hide behind others and would face him head-on. If we fought head-on, could I kill him? At this moment, perhaps because the shock and disbelief were too intense, even his killing intent weakened slightly. He even felt a sense of uncertainty. Could he win? Back at the Tier 2 cave mansion, Li Chang'an slowly walked out. The evening breeze gently rustled his white robes. He was smiling and perfectly composed as he cupped his hands in salute to those in all four directions. Thank you, fellow Taoists. That address, fellow Taoists, signified that he had officially entered the ranks of Foundation establishment. Zhang Qingqing's beautiful eyes curved with a smile, her red dress fluttering as her gentle voice sounded. Chang'an, congratulations. Su Yuyan was also overjoyed, her willow-like brows arching as she let out a laugh as pleasant as silver bells. Brother Li, this is wonderful. We can still walk a long way together. Yes, the future is long indeed. Li Chang'an replied with a smile, thanking them both in turn. Both of them had put in a great deal of effort to help him with his Foundation establishment. They had also stood guard outside while he was breaking through. This was a friendship worth trusting. In the future, they could support each other and travel further along the endless immortal path. A moment later, the three of them returned to Li Chang'an's residence together. Let's skip the tea today, we'll have some spirit wine. Li Chang'an was all smiles, in high spirits. Looking back on the past few decades, he had always been tense, cautious, and constantly on alert, never once truly relaxing. Now, he had finally earned the right to relax for once. He took out Tier 2 flesh and blood, spirit fruits and spirit wine, and drank with Zhang Qingqing and Su Yuyan. Zhang Qingqing suddenly asked, Chang'an, when do you plan to return to King? After the Foundation establishment ceremony. Li Chang'an replied. He had to make a trip back to King to see some old acquaintances, and while he was at it, settle a grudge. Next, as they drank, they began to discuss the path of Foundation establishment. Zhang Qingqing and Su Yuyan had both achieved Foundation establishment earlier than he had. One was a descendant of a noble family, the other a sect disciple. Both had seniors to guide them, so their understanding of the Foundation establishment realm was certainly deeper than his and worth learning from. Zhang Qingqing asked with concern, Chang'an, do you have a suitable cultivation technique for the Foundation establishment stage? Li Chang'an answered, I do. My current technique can be cultivated to the Foundation establishment peak, so for now, I don't need to worry about a cultivation technique. Speaking of which, the ancient wood evergreen technique surfaced in his mind. This was the technique he most desired to obtain. Its tier had to be high. It might even be a legendary celestial grade technique. Unfortunately, he only had one of the keys. He was still missing the other three. Only by gathering all four keys would he have a chance to obtain the technique, and finally glimpse the secret of spirit root ascension. Brother Li, Cultivation techniques for the foundation establishment stage are divided into two types, but there isn't much difference between them. Su Yuyan took a sip of spirit wine, a faint blush appearing on her cheeks. She began to explain the details about the techniques. One type divides the foundation establishment stage into 9 minor layers, while the other only divides it into the 3 major stages of early, middle, and late. But there's really no difference, because a foundation establishment cultivator's strength is only related to the amount of liquid magical power they've accumulated. The more liquid magical power you have, the stronger you are. Therefore, what truly matters is the tier of the cultivation technique. Chapter 231, Chapter 182, Reactions of All Parties Targeting the Golden Core. According to the records of the Cyan Cloud sect, foundation establishment cultivators who practice celestial grade techniques accumulate more than 340 drops of liquid magical power in their danshan when they reach the foundation establishment peak. Earth grade techniques are slightly weaker, but the accumulated magical power will still exceed 300 drops. Top grade techniques are weaker still. Upon reaching the peak, one can accumulate over 260 drops of liquid magical power. In short, among cultivators of the same realm, a better cultivation technique meant more liquid magical power and greater strength. Therefore, among foundation establishment cultivators, some might appear to be at the same realm, but their actual strength could be worlds apart. Occasionally, there were even cases where a cultivator of a lower realm defeated one of a higher realm. Su Yuyan stated that she practiced an earth grade technique. Techniques of this tier were rare, even within the Cyan Cloud sect. As for celestial grade techniques, it seemed the Cyan Cloud sect didn't have any, or perhaps they did, but her current realm was too low for her to access such secrets. Brother Li, if I cultivate my technique to the foundation establishment peak, I can probably accumulate around 320 drops of magical power. Such an accumulation is already considered quite profound, and my magical power won't hold me back when I try to break through to the golden core. You can try to sense the limit of your own cultivation technique now. As she spoke, Su Yuyan taught him a minor magic. Casting this magic allowed one to perceive the limits of their own cultivation technique within the foundation establishment stage. After Li Chang'an learned it, he carefully sensed his own limits. A moment later, realization struck him. If I cultivate the ancient wood health cultivation technique to the foundation establishment peak, the liquid magical power I accumulate will be around 295 drops. That's already very close to the lower limit of an earth grade technique. But Li Chang'an was still not quite satisfied. This made him look forward to the ancient wood evergreen technique even more. King, what tier is the cultivation technique you practice? Chang'an, my technique is just an ordinary top grade technique. Zheng Qingqing didn't hide anything and told him directly. The limit of liquid magical power she could accumulate with her technique was 280 drops. The 10,000 Treasures Tower had better fire element techniques, but her current contribution wasn't enough to exchange for one. For now, she could only continue practicing her original technique. Many foundation establishment cultivators were like her, practicing top-grade techniques. Even most foundation establishment cultivators from the sects couldn't obtain an earth-grade technique without sufficient contributions. The earth-grade technique Su Yuyan practiced had been exchanged for her by her master, who had spent a massive amount of his own contribution points. I've heard that with the most perfect technique, one can accumulate 365 drops of magical power upon reaching the foundation establishment peak. This number corresponds to the celestial cycle and is said to be of some help when breaking through to the golden core. However, such a technique only exists in legends. No one has ever seen one. Her face flushed as she recounted the rumors she had heard in the Cyan Cloud sect. These legends, naturally, all came from secret realms. Such records were found on fragmented ancient texts excavated from these secret realms. During the ancient times, each of the 9 great sects that ruled the cultivation immortality realm possessed such a perfect technique. Unfortunately, all of it vanished with the passing of the ancient times. All in all, the ancient wood health cultivation technique Li Chang'an was currently practicing was quite good. When fighting cultivators of the same tier, he generally wouldn't be held back by his magical power, unless he was fighting against a celestial pride from a major sect or a great noble family. As for those kinds of celestial prides, Li Chang'an had always stayed as far away as possible, rarely provoking them. His current priority was to find a better spiritual land to cultivate in. Foundation establishment cultivators should ideally cultivate on a Tier 2 spirit vein, Chang'an mused. The spiritual qi concentration of his current residence was only Tier 1 top grade. It was fine for a qi refining cultivator, but it wasn't enough for a foundation establishment great cultivator. Su Yuyan lived across from him, and her residence also had a Tier 1 top grade spiritual qi concentration. The only reason her cultivation speed hadn't slowed was purely due to her use of numerous treasures and a Tier 2 spirit gathering array. Thinking of this, Chang'an couldn't help but sigh. Yuyan, it's been hard on you. It's nothing. All that matters is that you're safe, brother Li. Su Yuyan gave a small, sweet smile. It was indeed rather stifling for a foundation establishment great cultivator to cultivate in a place like this, but she hadn't complained in the slightest. After all, she had come here of her own volition. Now that Chang'an had succeeded in foundation establishment, he no longer needed her protection. Brother Li, are you planning to rent a residence with Tier 2 spiritual qi? Let me think. Chang'an put down his wine cup and pondered for a moment. A moment later, he shook his head slightly. The spirit vein in Yellow Crane Immortal City is good, but it ultimately belongs to the Yellow Crane Mountain lineage. I've had conflicts with a few of their foundation establishment cultivators, so it's not convenient for me to stay here any longer. Then come to the Cyan Cloud sect, Su Yuyan said with a smile, her voice clear and sweet. Brother Li, your talisman art should have broken through to Tier 2, right? Yes. That makes things easy. Foundation establishment cultivation, plus a Tier 2 skill. That's enough to secure a position as an honored guest elder in the Cyan Cloud sect. It wasn't just the Cyan Cloud sect, either. The other 2 major sects and the 7 great noble families would all welcome such a talent. After all, Chang'an was a righteous cultivator with a clean background. He had never done anything out of line, spending most of his time cultivating honestly. His reputation and relationships were both good. As long as he was willing to become an honored guest elder of the Cyan Cloud sect, he wouldn't face any obstacles. He would pass the Cyan Cloud sect's review process quickly. Brother Li, those elders who rejected you before the immortal sect's gates are still alive. I wonder how surprised they'll be when you return, having successfully reached foundation establishment. Su Yuyan said with a laugh. Back then, all who were turned away at the gates were those deemed to have no potential for foundation establishment. But now, Chang'an had become a foundation establishment cultivator. Meanwhile, of those who had successfully entered the immortal sect, nearly half had already passed away, and many of the rest were still lingering in the qi refining stage. Chapter 232. Chapter 182. Reactions from all sides targeting the golden core. Foundation establishment was too difficult. In the end, very few ever succeeded. Return to the Cyan Cloud sect. Chang'an was somewhat tempted by Su Yuyan's suggestion. The scene of him being turned away at the gates surfaced in his mind once again. Back then, he had overcome countless trials and tribulations, braving innumerable dangers to finally reach the legendary immortal sect. But he had been cruelly turned away at the gates, and his composure had nearly shattered. However, that was all in the past. Now, he no longer yearned for the major sects as he once had. Yuyan, let's just forget it. Chang'an shook his head slightly, rejecting Su Yuyan's proposal. After all, the Cyan Cloud sect had a golden core ancestor. Cultivating under the watchful eye of such a powerful figure would always make him feel uneasy. Furthermore, his feud with Cao Xiaolong was not yet settled, and Cao Xiaolong was also a member of the Cyan Cloud sect. Thinking of this, Chang'an glanced at Su Yuyan. He had once heard from Jiang Yuerong. Su Yuyan had many suitors within the sect, including quite a few foundation establishment powerhouses. If Chang'an went to the Cyan Cloud sect and maintained a close relationship with Su Yuyan, he would likely become a public enemy, targeted by countless people. He just wanted to cultivate in peace, not constantly be caught up in fighting and killing. Brother Li, do you really not want to go? Hearing this, Su Yuyan's expression immediately fell. Zhang Qingqing said gently, Chang'an, since you're unwilling to stay in Yellow Crane Immortal City and don't want to go to the Cyan Cloud sect, how about going to the Wu clan territory to oversee things? The Wu clan territory. Chang'an pondered this. He had considered this option long ago. But the spirit vein at the Wu clan territory was only a tier 2 low grade. Once his cultivation reached the middle stage of foundation establishment, he would have to move again. Besides, the Wu clan territory was too far from any major marketplace or immortal city. There were few opportunities nearby, making it inconvenient for bargain hunting and trading. Young mistress, let me think about it some more. If I really can't find a suitable place, I'll go oversee the Wu clan territory. Li Chang'an replied. He planned to first look around the nearby region to see if there were any suitable tier 2 spirit veins. Su Yuyan suddenly said, Brother Li, the Cyan Cloud sect has some rentable tier 2 spirit veins in this region. Most of them are already leased out, but I'll ask around for you later. Maybe there's one left. All right then, thank you for your trouble, Yuyan. It's nothing. Su Yuyan smiled faintly. She didn't feel troubled at all. On the contrary, she was quite happy. She hadn't been able to help much with his foundation establishment. Even the foundation establishment pill had been refined by Zhang Qingqing for Li Chang'an. It was for the best that she could finally be of some assistance. Just as they were speaking, a visitor suddenly arrived at the gate. Brother Li, are you home? It's me, Fugui. Hearing this, Li Chang'an smiled, stood up, and went to open the gate. Fugui, come on in. Brother Li, the aura of the person who reached foundation establishment today felt a bit like yours, so I wanted to come and ask. Before he could finish, Li Chang'an smiled and nodded. It was me. It really was you. Su Fugui's eyes went wide, his expression a perfect picture of someone utterly dumbstruck. He seemed petrified, standing frozen at the entrance with his mind a complete blank. Li Chang'an had to call his name with a smile several times. Only then did he snap out of it. Brother Li, how did you reach foundation establishment so quietly? I thought you had just broken through to the chi refining 8th layer. His eyes wide, he sized Li Chang'an up and down several times. It was as if he wanted to see what changes came with breaking through to foundation establishment. However, Li Chang'an still looked no different than before, without even a hint of a suppressive aura about him. Stop staring. Foundation establishment is just a little stronger than chi refining. There's not much difference. He laughed and pulled Su Fugui into the courtyard, then closed the gate. Only then did Su Fugui notice there were other people in the courtyard. Young Mistress Daosu, you're here too. Yes, Fugui, come have a seat. Zhang Qingqing chuckled, beckoning him over. Su Yuyan also wore a smile, not looking down on Su Fugui just because he was at the chi refining stage. They were old friends who had known each other for years, having walked the arduous path of seeking immortality together. If I had known you were all here, I would have brought more spiritual cuisine. As he spoke, Su Fugui took out more than 10 exquisite portions of spiritual cuisine from his storage pouch. A rich fragrance wafted out, instantly filling the entire courtyard. Li Chang'an smiled. This is more than enough, have a seat first. Afterward, the four of them sat around the stone table in the courtyard. They talked about cultivation at one moment and reminisced about the past the next. During their conversation, Li Chang'an shared his insights on foundation establishment with Su Fugui. He could tell that Su Fugui was about to break through the chi refining 9th layer. At this rate, he had a good chance of reaching foundation establishment before he turned 60. That senior Wang Fun was very fond of Su Fugui and would surely prepare a top-quality foundation establishment treasure for him. Before long, Chu Danyu arrived as well. He brought plenty of spirit wine. Young Mistress, Taoist Su and Fugui, I guessed you all would be here, so I brought some extra wine. He scratched his head with a grin. Li Chang'an picked up a jar of spirit wine, unsealed it, and took a sniff. Huh, big bull, have your spirit wine brewing skills advanced to tier 2? I just advanced not long ago. Excellent, come sit down. A moment later, Li Chang'an also shared his own insights on foundation establishment with Chu Danyu. The master behind Chu Danyu didn't seem to be an ordinary foundation establishment cultivator. His strength and background were both formidable. Chu Danyu had already surpassed Su Fugui by breaking through to the chi refining 9th layer and was currently accumulating magical power. With such a cultivation level, he should have been happy. But for some reason, there was always a faint trace of worry between his brows. Time flew by. Before they knew it, it was the middle of the night. Chu Danyu was already drunk and finally started telling Li Chang'an about his master. Brother Li, my master, He might make a move against Huang He Master. I'm worried he's no match for him. Hello? Li Chang'an was startled. He immediately circulated his cultivation technique to dispel all effects of the alcohol and sober up completely. Big Bull, is your master a golden core master? He asked via sound transmission while pushing the four-layered grand array to its limit, completely isolating the courtyard from the outside world. Chu Danyu replied worriedly, yes, my master has a golden core cultivation, but he reached core formation much later, so his magical power can't compare to Huang He Master's. I've tried to persuade him many times, but he's insisted on making a move. Why is that? Li Chang'an asked covertly. Chu Danyu replied in his drunken stupor. His master and Huang He Master were once sworn brothers, but when faced with an opportunity related to the golden core, Huang He Master launched a sneak attack on him from behind. My master was gravely injured and had no choice but to flee into the depths of a secret realm, where he was trapped for over 200 years. Now that he had returned, he was naturally seeking revenge. But his master was all alone. Huang He Master was not. He had a Tier 3 spiritual crane. His head disciple was also a golden core, and his second disciple had a fake pill. Against such a lineup, if Chu Danyu's master went, he would most likely never return. Sigh. Chu Danyu let out a deep sigh, his face filled with sorrow. Master said that once I achieve foundation establishment success, he will go seek revenge on Huang He Master. At this he chugged a mouthful of spirit wine, his drunkenness deepening. Brother Li, I don't want to reach foundation establishment anymore. I just want my master to live. Chapter 233. Chapter 183. Invitations from all sides, the foundation establishment ceremony. Chu Danyu's drunken words. They truly took Li Chang'an by surprise. He never would have imagined that this good brother of his, who possessed a low-grade spirit root, would actually be noticed by a golden core master. Furthermore, this golden core master was also an enemy of Yellow Crane Immortal City. When you thought about it, Li Chang'an and his master shared the same goal. If Li Chang'an also had the strength of a golden core, he might have been able to win over his master, and the two could deal with Yellow Crane Immortal City together. Unfortunately, Li Chang'an himself had just reached foundation establishment. With his current level of strength, he wasn't qualified to cooperate with a golden core expert. By the time he broke through to the golden core realm, the man might have already been killed by Huang He Master. Chu Danyu asked drunkenly, Brother Li, what do you think I should do? Big Bull, this is a matter between golden cores. Neither of us can interfere. Li Chang'an sighed and offered some comforting words. A moment later, he gave a few suggestions. Big Bull, if you don't want your master to go seeking death, then you have to give him things to care about. Brother Li, what do you mean by that? Chu Danyu paused for a moment, then immediately circulated his magical power to dispel his drunkenness. Li Chang'an patiently explained. As long as a person has people and matters they can't let go of, they won't go seeking death. For example, the fact that Chu Danyu had yet to reach foundation establishment was something his master couldn't rest easy about. If you can give him a few more things like this, your master naturally won't be in such a hurry to get revenge. Li Chang'an gave his advice earnestly. He didn't want that golden core expert to die just like that either. Even if he had to die, it should be a worthy death. It would be best if he could significantly weaken the Yellow Crane Mountain lineage's power before his death. That would make things easier for me in the future. Chu Danyu listened intently, pausing to think from time to time. Brother Li, I understand. Good that you understand. Li Chang'an raised his wine cup and took a sip. His brows furrowed slightly. As he thought about the matter of Yellow Crane Mountain, the relaxed feeling he'd had earlier vanished. Before they knew it, the entire night had passed. The first light of dawn appeared. Su Fugui and Chu Danyu left one after another. Before they departed, they asked about the date of Li Chang'an's foundation establishment ceremony. Li Chang'an tentatively set the date for 1 month from now. Fugui, Big Bull, I'll leave the spiritual cuisine and spirit wine needed for my foundation establishment ceremony to you too. Don't you worry, brother, we'll definitely get it done right. As they left, both men patted their chests and promised to handle it. After the two of them left, Zheng Qingqing chuckled. Chang'an, you're going to be busy for the next month. Sigh, I really wish I could just hang a closed cultivation sign. Li Chang'an sighed, knowing exactly what Zhang Qingqing meant. Back then, after Zhang Qingqing reached foundation establishment, the threshold of her residence was nearly worn down by people from the various major powers. Even a noble family descendant like her had received recruitment offers from all sides after her foundation establishment. So what could a loose cultivator with a clean background like Li Chang'an expect? It was foreseeable. For the next month, Li Chang'an was destined to have no peace. The 3 great sects and the 7 great noble families would most likely send people to recruit him. As for Yellow Crane Immortal City, Li Chang'an thought for a moment. The one in Yellow Crane Immortal City responsible for external recruitment has always been the 6th disciple, Sima Rui. He and I have a grudge, so he probably won't come. It's better if he doesn't. That saves me the trouble of entertaining him. In the days that followed, just as Li Chang'an had predicted, his residence was flooded with a constant stream of visitors. It wasn't just the golden core and foundation establishment influences. Even many Qi refining sects and clans came to visit, inviting him to become their patriarch. One small Qi refining clan was even willing to have all its members change their surname to Li, just to have him become their clan's patriarch. But a Qi refining influence would only be a burden to him, so he refused them all. Haha, Elder Li, your place is certainly bustling with activity. A bright laugh rang out from outside the gate. The visitor was none other than Li Chang'an's old acquaintance, the 10,000 Treasures Tower shopkeeper, Jin Yue. This time, he addressed him as Elder from the very first word, his attitude perfectly respectful. Manager Jin, and you, fellow Taoist, please come in and have a seat. Li Chang'an noticed a foundation establishment cultivator from the Jin family standing beside Jin Yue, and immediately came out to welcome them. Sensing the foundation establishment aura naturally emanating from him, Jin Yue was inwardly shocked. He had long known that Li Chang'an had ambitions to reach foundation establishment. But there were plenty of loose cultivators with such ambitions. Few of them ever succeeded. Originally, he hadn't been optimistic and thought Li Chang'an would most likely fail his foundation establishment attempt. But now, standing before him, was a genuine foundation establishment great cultivator. Elder Li, this is my uncle Jin Ming. Li Chang'an smiled and clasped his hands in a salute. So it is Taoist Jin Ming. On the day of his foundation establishment success, this man had called out his congratulations. Jin Ming wore a smile and was very amiable. He didn't state the purpose of his visit directly. Instead, he first spoke about some matters to be aware of during the foundation establishment stage, particularly emphasizing the importance of one's cultivation technique. Li Chang'an sat opposite him in the courtyard, chatting and laughing amiably. The atmosphere was harmonious. Jin Ming smiled and said, Taoist Li, I've heard from young Yue that the cultivation technique you practice is a top-grade technique. I wonder, are you satisfied with it? Li Chang'an nodded slightly and replied calmly. It's not bad. I'm quite fond of this cultivation technique. Taoist Li, are you aware that in my Jin family's treasure vault, we have an earth-grade wood element technique? Oh? Li Chang'an's heart stirred. I know he's about to make his invitation now. Sure enough, Jin Ming said with sincerity, Taoist Li, during the foundation establishment stage, one's cultivation technique is of utmost importance. If you were able to practice an earth-grade technique, you would surely be able to go much further on the immortal Tao. Hearing this, Li Chang'an let out a wistful sigh. Alas, Taoist Jin, there is something you don't know. For a loose cultivator like myself, just reaching foundation establishment has already used up all my luck. I dare not extravagantly hope to advance any further in this life. Chapter 234, Chapter 183, Many Invitations, Foundation Establishment Ceremony. Jin Ming was silent for a moment. He could tell that Li Chang'an was politely refusing him. Besides, what Li Chang'an said was true. The vast majority of loose cultivators exhausted their potential and fighting spirit just to reach foundation establishment. They would remain at the early stage of foundation establishment for the rest of their lives, no longer striving as hard as they had during the Qi refining stage. They were content to become a foundation establishment ancestor and enjoy their remaining years in peace. After all, most who became loose cultivators were people with inferior spiritual roots. No matter how hard they fought after reaching foundation establishment, it was nearly impossible to break through to the golden core realm, so they might as well enjoy their lives. Loose cultivators who reached the golden core realm like Huang He Master were far too rare. Taoist Li, are you sure you won't reconsider? Jin Ming asked again, his invitation sincere. He offered numerous benefits, including that earth-grade wood element technique. As long as Li Chang'an was willing to become an honored guest elder for the Jin family and made enough contributions, he would eventually be able to exchange them for that earth-grade technique. But Li Chang'an still refused. He knew full well the contribution required to obtain that earth-grade technique would surely be astronomical. He would probably have to toil away for the Jin family for decades just to earn it. Jin Ming sighed and didn't press the matter further. In that case, I wish Taoist Li stable cultivation and a smooth journey on the immortal Tao. Thank you, Taoist Jin. Li Chang'an replied with a smile. Not long after, Jin Ming left with Jin Yue. Before leaving, he gave Li Chang'an a VIP token. The status this token represented was even higher than the one Zheng Qingqing had given Li Chang'an. It was nearly equivalent to being an honored guest elder of the Jin family. From now on, Li Chang'an would have greater access within the 10,000 Treasures Tower and could view even more precious treasures. Furthermore, he would receive a 10% discount on all purchases. Li Chang'an watched Jin Ming depart, then glanced at the token in his hand and marveled to himself. As expected of a merchant family, so generous. He carefully put the token away. The path of body refinement required a large number of expensive treasures, and this token would save him a considerable sum in the future. That evening, Li Chang'an paid a visit to the 10,000 Treasures Tower. Jin Yue greeted him enthusiastically and took him directly to the third floor of the 10,000 Treasures Tower to show him more treasures. It had to be said, after his strength and status had increased, things had certainly become much more convenient. Li Chang'an had previously been unable to purchase the last few treasures he needed for the Tier 2 body refining second layer. But this time, he managed to gather all of them at once. So this is the benefit of having strength and status. Li Chang'an reflected inwardly. After reaching Foundation Establishment, everything seemed different. Although he had known a few Foundation Establishment cultivators before, he couldn't always be asking them for help. The next day, Li Chang'an was preparing the medicinal concoction needed for the second layer of body refinement. Another golden core family came to visit. This time it was also acquaintances. Mozai of the Mo family. Beside her was a Mo family Foundation Establishment cultivator, Mo Wenyuan. Taoist Mo. Li Chang'an greeted them with a smile. On the day he had succeeded in reaching Foundation Establishment, this man had been the first to congratulate him. Mo Wenyuan laughed. Haha, Taoist Li, I often hear Mozai speak of you. If you hadn't saved her life, she would have died at the hands of that poison cultivator long ago. It was nothing really, not worth mentioning. Li Chang'an invited the two into his courtyard and served them spirit tea and spirit fruit. Just like Jin Ming, Mo Wenyuan didn't immediately extend an invitation. Instead, he began by speaking to Li Chang'an about the importance of having a cultivation technique for the Foundation Establishment stage. They all seemed to think that a loose cultivator like Li Chang'an must be desperate for a high-tier cultivation technique. In fact, Li Chang'an did want one. But he had no intention of selling his life to the 7 great noble families. The two of them chatted and laughed, and a quarter of an hour passed before they knew it. During this time, Mozai, being a chi refining cultivator, barely spoke. She felt the Foundation Establishment aura coming from Li Chang'an, and her emotions were particularly complex. Even he has reached Foundation Establishment. Mozai sighed inwardly. There was a time when she had completely looked down on loose cultivators like Li Chang'an, who had a low-grade spirit root. But now Li Chang'an had already surpassed her. Meanwhile, the treasures she had accumulated had all been stolen by that tribulation cultivator named Li Fan. She had no idea when she would be able to gather what she needed for Foundation Establishment. Damn you, Li Fan. At this thought, Mozai gnashed her teeth, wishing she could tear that Li Fan to pieces. Before long, Li Chang'an politely declined the Mo family's invitation and saw the two of them out. As he was leaving, Mo Wenyuan also gave him an identity token. With this token, he could get a 10% discount when purchasing puppets from the Mo family's shops. Li Chang'an watched them leave and sighed to himself. A pity, what I want is puppets but the art of puppetry itself. Puppets were consumables. They could be damaged after a major battle, and he would either have to hire someone to repair them or buy new ones. Either way, the cost in spirit stones would be significant. Only by mastering the puppetry skill himself could he minimize the expense. A few days later, the Zhou family also sent someone. The two who came were both acquaintances of Li Chang'an. One was Zhou Xuan, and the other was Zhou Sheng, the foundation establishment cultivator from the Zhou family who had sold him the advancement treasure, the profound crystal. Their purpose was much the same as that of the Mo and Jin families. They were also politely refused by Li Chang'an. After that, whenever he faced invitations from the major sects and noble families, Li Chang'an gave the same excuse. He claimed that reaching foundation establishment had been a stroke of luck, that he had lost his fighting spirit and was no longer willing to struggle. He just wanted to live out the rest of his life in peace. Before he knew it, the day of the foundation establishment ceremony was approaching. The day before the ceremony was scheduled to begin. The master and disciple pair, Pei Yingyao and Jai Menjian, came to visit. Jai Menjian said eagerly, "Elder Li, I actually wanted to come see you much sooner, but Master said you must be very busy lately and wouldn't let me disturb you." "It has been a bit busy, but it's manageable." Li Chang'an smiled and took out his best Tier 2 spirit tea to serve Pei Yingyao. Chapter 235. Chapter 183. Invitations from all sides, Foundation Establishment Ceremony. He said respectfully, "Elder Pei, thank you for taking care of me. Without your help, I'm afraid I never would have made it to Foundation Establishment." Pei Yingyao gave a slight nod and drank the tea. "Li Chang'an, I only helped a few times. You made it this far on your own. Remember, heaven helps those who help themselves." She, too, was somewhat surprised that Li Chang'an had reached Foundation Establishment. She knew Li Chang'an had his share of fortuitous encounters, but his innate talent was poor, so his chances of a successful Foundation establishment should have been very low. However, just as she'd said, heaven helps those who help themselves. Li Chang'an's path had been arduous, but he had never given up. "Li Chang'an, what about the cultivation technique you're practicing now?" Unsurprisingly, Pei Yingyao also asked about his cultivation technique. For a foundation establishment cultivator, one's cultivation technique was critically important. Li Chang'an answered truthfully. After he finished, Pei Yingyao's brows knitted slightly. "Just a top-grade technique," she said lightly. "That's a bit lacking." Li Chang'an forced a wry smile. "Elder Pei, for a loose cultivator like me, having a top-grade technique is already a great fortune." "That's true." Pei Yingyao didn't ask any more questions, nor did she inquire if Li Chang'an had any intention of joining Yellow Crane Immortal City. This was because she knew of the conflict between Li Chang'an and certain individuals. It would be a pointless question, so she didn't waste her breath. After some conversation, Li Chang'an began to share his insights on foundation establishment with Jai Menjian. The insights of any cultivator who had just reached foundation establishment were incredibly precious. This was the very reason Pei Yingyao had brought Jai Menjian along. Jai Menjian would also be attempting to reach foundation establishment soon. She listened intently, then thanked him sincerely. "Thank you very much, Elder Li. There's no need to call me Elder. Before long, we'll be addressing each other as fellow Taoists," Li Chang'an said with a smile. His meaning was clear. He was certain Jai Menjian would achieve foundation establishment success. Jai Menjian was inwardly delighted, the corners of her lips turning up unconsciously. Not long after, the master and disciple departed. The next day, Li Chang'an's foundation establishment ceremony officially began. The ceremony was a simple affair. He hadn't chosen a special venue, simply holding it in his own residence. The attendees were either his friends from this life or foundation establishment, and Qi refining disciples from the various major sects and noble families. Su Fugui was in charge of all the spiritual cuisine for the ceremony. Today, a very portly old man stood by his side. At a glance, the old man even bore a slight resemblance to him. "Big brother, this is my master, Elder Wang." A smile broke out on Li Chang'an's face, and he immediately welcomed him. Wang Fun laughed heartily. "Why call me Elder? We're both at foundation establishment. Addressing each other as fellow Taoists is perfectly fine." Li Chang'an smiled. "Very well, Taoist Wang, please have a seat over here." Wang Fun was exceptionally amiable, just as the rumors claimed. He had made almost no enemies in his entire life, greeting everyone with a smile and looking for all the world like a Maitreya Buddha. Most of the guests at the ceremony knew him and greeted him with smiles. With him present, the entire atmosphere of the ceremony became much more harmonious. A short while later, Su Yuyan arrived. Beside her were Yuan Ying and Jiang Yuerong, both familiar faces to Li Chang'an. There was also a gaunt old woman with them. Li Chang'an hurried forward to greet them. "Greetings, Elder Chen." This old woman was none other than Su Yuyan's master, Chen Huilan. Though she looked ordinary, she was a fearsomely powerful expert at the late stage of Foundation establishment. It was rumored that she had once attempted to break through to the core formation realm. Although she had failed, her power was far greater than that of an ordinary Foundation establishment cultivator. Back then, Cao Xiaolong had tried to come down from the mountain to kill Li Chang'an on multiple occasions, but he was thwarted by Chen Huilan every time. "Li the kid, it's been so many years, yet you haven't aged a day. You still look like a teenager. It's enough to make an old woman like me quite envious." A faint smile touched Chen Huilan's lips. Back when Li Chang'an took part in the Cyan Cloud sect's entrance assessment, she had been one of the Foundation establishment cultivators administering it. At the time, she had felt Li Chang'an had an excellent disposition and had wanted to accept him into the Cyan Cloud sect, but the others had disagreed. "Those old geezers have terrible judgment. Of all the candidates they favored, hardly any have reached Foundation establishment." As she spoke of the past, the smile on Chen Huilan's face widened. As she spoke, her somewhat cloudy eyes shifted, and she sized Li Chang'an up. "Not bad. Your cultivation foundation is very solid. If you had joined the Cyan Cloud sect back then, you might not have achieved what you have today." Li Chang'an remained noncommittal in response to her words. Time could not be turned back. He couldn't be sure what his life would be like now if he had joined the Cyan Cloud sect all those years ago. "Elder Chen, please have a seat." "All right." Accompanied by her disciples, Chen Huilan casually found a spot to sit down. During this, Yuan Ying gave Li Chang'an a complicated look. When she had accompanied Su Yuyan to gain experience at the King Marketplace, she had already been at the Qi refining 9th layer. Meanwhile, Li Chang'an had only been at the Qi refining 5th layer. Now, she was still at the Qi refining 9th layer, while Li Chang'an had already reached Foundation establishment. Her progress on the path of cultivation had been swift, but not as steady as Li Chang'an's. In comparison, Jiang Yuerong's state of mind was much better, simply because she had once witnessed Li Chang'an instantly kill more than a dozen tribulation cultivators. Keep in mind, there were masters of the Qi refining 9th layer among those tribulation cultivators. She knew in her heart that even back then, Li Chang'an must have been on the verge of reaching Foundation establishment. Before long, the other guests arrived one after another. People like Jin Yue, Mozai Jokshuan, and others. It was a joyous gathering. Most of the guests knew one another, and they talked and laughed throughout the banquet, their cups clinking in lively toasts. For a time, the residence was filled with distinguished guests, the air rich with the aroma of fine spirits, creating a scene of extraordinary liveliness. About an hour later, Jin Ming of the Jin family suddenly stood up, raising his cup to Li Chang'an with a smile. "Congratulations on reaching Foundation establishment, Taoist Li." The others also rose one by one, raising their cups to Li Chang'an. "Congratulations on reaching Foundation establishment, Taoist Li." "Congratulations, Elder Li." Their faces were wreathed in smiles as they called him Taoist Li or Elder Li. The voices echoed, ringing through the hall for a long time. Li Chang'an sat in the seat of honor. The scene before him left him in a bit of a daze. Back then, on his immortal path, he had met with disaster, suffering grievous injuries that nearly claimed his life. On the brink of death, delirious and half-conscious, he had dreamed of this very scene. Now that dream had become reality. The banquet continued for a long time. For 7 whole days. During that time, the guests either sat and discussed the Tao or chatted about the various rumors of the cultivation immortality realm. Some Foundation establishment great cultivators, feeling inspired, gave a discourse on the spot, sharing their experiences and insights on cultivation, which greatly benefited many of the younger generation present. Others drank until they were completely intoxicated, and with no regard for their image, collapsed in a corner of the courtyard to sleep it off, drawing roars of laughter from the crowd. All in all, both the host and guests had a wonderful time in a joyous and harmonious atmosphere. It wasn't until dusk on the seventh day, beneath a crimson sunset, that the boisterous celebration finally began to wind down. The guests began to say their farewells, preparing to depart. But, just at that moment, a loud laugh suddenly rang out from nearby. "Ha, what a magnificent feast indeed!" Immediately after, several figures descended from the sky, landing in Li Chang'an's courtyard. The arrivals were none other than several disciples from Yellow Crane Mountain. The man in the lead was middle-aged and dressed in white robes. The fake pill great power Zaihu Hong. Upon seeing him, the expressions of everyone present changed slightly, and they all bowed in greeting. "Greetings, Elder Zaihu. There's no need for such ceremony." Zaihu Hong's expression was mild, and he carried the air of a senior. Behind him stood Murong Kang, Chuksheng, and Sima Rui. Li Chang'an immediately stepped forward, his face a mask of respect. "Elder Zaihu, please have a seat." "That won't be necessary." Zaihu Hong smiled and waved his hand dismissively. He looked at Li Chang'an and said with a smile, "Li, I know you've had some conflicts with these 3 junior brothers of mine, but that's all in the past. How about you let me mediate today and resolve this tension between you?" The moment his voice fell, a terrifying pressure, one befitting a core formation expert, descended like a towering mountain, instantly bearing down on Li Chang'an. His face went pale. He let out a muffled grunt and nearly buckled to his knees on the spot. But he strained to remain standing, and his voice was surprisingly steady. "I will leave everything to your judgment, Elder." Seeing this, Su Yuyan's expression changed drastically. She was about to rush forward, but her master, Chen Huilan, held her firmly in place. "Yuyan, don't be reckless." In a corner of the courtyard, Pei Yingyao, who had been resting with her eyes closed, suddenly snapped them open. Her gaze was so sharp it seemed as if sword chi might fly from it. She moved to help Li Chang'an, but her sword had barely left its scabbard by 2 inches when it was forcefully suppressed by a wave of core formation magical power. Immediately after, Zaihu Hong's voice sounded by her ear. "Ninth junior sister, don't make a scene. Today you will listen to me." Chapter 236, Chapter 184, Perfected Master Black Feather, Chang'an Cave Mansion. The tyrannical core formation, magical power suppressed everyone present. Zaihu Hong alone was enough to render the place dead silent. Pei Yingyao was seething with uncontrollable rage, but no matter how strong her sword intent was, it couldn't break through the terrifying power of core formation. The rest of Li Chang'an's friends were also furious. The Yellow Crane Mountain lineage. Chu Danyu clenched his fists tightly, his head bowed as he suppressed the rage in his heart. Everyone present knew that Zaihu Hong was being far too tyrannical, completely disregarding all etiquette. Today was Li Chang'an's foundation establishment ceremony. Any and all grievances should have been settled after the ceremony. But Zaihu Hong had deliberately chosen this exact moment to arrive. One must understand. With Li Chang'an's level of talent, managing to reach foundation establishment was already a stroke of luck. Achieving the Golden Core realm was out of the question. This foundation establishment ceremony was likely the most glorious moment of his entire life. Yet Zaihu Hong had chosen this exact moment to forcefully humiliate him. Any other foundation establishment cultivator might have been so enraged as to cough up blood on the spot. Their entire life would have been overshadowed by this stifling humiliation, and they might have even developed a heart demon. But Li Chang'an's composure was rather solid. He had endured countless hardships in his life. What was a little tempest like this? Now, he just hoped Zaihu Hong would live a little longer, long enough for him to become strong enough to kill a fake pill cultivator. "Elder Zaihu, how do you propose we resolve this conflict?" "Haha is simple." Zaihu Hong laughed loudly and tossed out a spirit contract. The contents of the spirit contract had already been drawn up, according to its stipulations. From now on, Li Chang'an was to forget all previous grudges, become friends with Murong Kang and the other 2, and was forbidden from taking any action against them. "Elder Zaihu, am I the only one who has to sign the spirit contract?" Li Chang'an asked again, his expression steady. Zaihu Hong chuckled. "That's right, Li, you can rest assured. My 3 junior brothers have already promised me that all past grievances with you will be wiped clean." Just a verbal promise. The question arose in the minds of everyone present. If that were truly the case, it would be taking things too far. If Li Chang'an actually signed the spirit contract, The trio could attack him at will, but he would be unable to fight back, forced to passively endure whatever they dished out. There wasn't a shred of fairness to this spirit contract. However, they were from the Yellow Crane mountain lineage. Including their Tier 3 spiritual crane, they had a total of 4 core formation-level combatants. Meanwhile, Chang'an was nothing more than a Foundation establishment loose cultivator, with no background to speak of. The fact that they were even willing to offer a verbal promise was already quite something. How could he possibly expect fairness? Zai Huhang, you are a core formation elder. Why must you bully a junior like this? Chen Hulan let out a sudden sigh. Seemingly ignoring the tyrannical core formation pressure, she slowly walked out from the crowd to stand at Chang'an's side. Although she wasn't Chang'an's elder. But in this situation today, she was the only one who could back Chang'an. Chen Hulan of the Cyan Cloud sect. Zai Huhang's smile vanished, and a hint of gravity touched his expression. For some reason, although Chen Hulan was only a Foundation establishment cultivator, he detected a hint of a dangerous aura from her. Rumor had it that she had once attempted to break through to the core formation realm. Although she had failed unexpectedly, she had likely retained some core formation-level techniques. Taoist Chen, how do you propose we conclude this matter? Zai Huhang asked in a heavy tone. He was being extremely cautious, even addressing her as Taoist. With a casual point of her finger, the spirit contract ignited and was reduced to ash in an instant. Her action made her stance perfectly clear. Let's do this. Have Chang'an also make a promise that he will not move against the 3 of them in the future. How does that sound? Fine. Zai Huhang didn't want to complicate matters, especially as the sense of threat he felt grew ever stronger. He had no choice but to agree for the time being. And so, with everyone watching, Chang'an also made a verbal promise, stating his willingness to turn foes into friends, and that he would never act against Murong Kang and the other 2. Of course, everyone understood that such a verbal promise was as good as worthless. It wasn't a vow sworn on his Tao heart. It could be broken at any moment. Chang'an walked forward, a smile on his face, and saluted Murong Kang and his 2 companions. Taoist Murong, Taoist Chu, Taoist Sima, as for past matters, let's let bygones be bygones. Hearing the word Taoist, Murong Kang and his companions felt extremely uncomfortable. In their eyes, Chang'an was still the same ant they could crush with a casual flick of a finger. Chang'an was particularly uncomfortable, as he had been absolutely certain that Chang'an could never reach Foundation establishment. But the truth was laid bare before him. He couldn't say anything more, and this wasn't the time to cause a scene, so he could only endure it for now. Still, it doesn't matter that he's reached Foundation establishment. Without an array to protect him, I could smash him to bits with a single punch. Chang'an thought to himself as killing intent surged within him. He was not only a Foundation establishment great cultivator, but also a Tier 2 body cultivator. Although his body refining technique had side effects that had damaged his mind, making him impulsive and quick to anger, his physical prowess was indeed tyrannical. Then, Zai Huhang departed in a hurry with the 3 men, not lingering a moment longer. As he left, he declared in a low voice, "Every one of you will keep what happened today to yourselves. Do not mention a word of it to outsiders." Yes, the numerous Foundation establishment and Qi refining cultivators present all saluted in assent. And just like that, the matter came to temporary close. Chang'an, his face filled with gratitude, offered his sincere thanks to Chen Hulan. "Thank you so much, Elder Chen." "It's nothing." Chen Hulan waved her hand, a hint of weariness appearing on her face. "The Yellow Crane mountain lineage has always been like this, just like that Huanghe master. The fish rots from the head down. Since you have a feud with them, you must cultivate diligently. Reach the Golden Core realm and then you can strike back." Upon hearing this, the expressions of everyone present were varied. With Chang'an's talent, how could he possibly reach the Golden Core realm? He only reached Foundation establishment in his 50s, which meant his potential was extremely poor. He would be lucky to reach the middle stage of Foundation establishment in this lifetime. Those with any real hope of reaching the Golden Core realm typically achieve Foundation establishment in their 30s, or even their 20s. Chapter 237, Chapter 184, Perfected Person Black Feather, Chang'an Cave Mansion. Take Mo Kingsu, The celestial pride of the Mo family, for example. Compared to Mo Kingsu, Li Chang'an's talent was like a firefly next to the bright moon, utterly incomparable. He gave a wry smile and replied, "Elder, you truly think too highly of me." Think too highly. Back then, outside the immortal sect, those old fools all thought you couldn't reach foundation establishment. But didn't you succeed anyway? A smile appeared on Chen Huolan's face as she patted his shoulder encouragingly. Unfortunately, I don't have much time left. I'm afraid I won't live to see the day you reach core formation. When you succeed, don't forget to come and tell my grave about it. Hearing this, Li Chang'an's heart warmed. In his entire life, he had rarely been so highly regarded by an elder. Su Yuyan asked with concern, "Brother Li, did that Zai Huang injure you secretly?" "Don't worry, he is a fake pill great power after all. He shouldn't stoop to something so shameless." "You can't be sure." Su Yuyan reached out her delicate hand, grabbing Li Chang'an's arm and sending a wisp of magical power in to check. The results of her examination let her breathe a sigh of relief. Just then Pei Yingyao walked over. Her expression, usually cold, was surprisingly complex at this moment. "Li Chang'an, my martial brothers acted too tyrannically today. You have been wronged." "It was just a bit of pressure, nothing more." Li Chang'an smiled, seemingly unconcerned. But Pei Yingyao said, "In the future, if you truly have the ability to strike back, I will not stop you. I wouldn't even mind if you wiped out the entire Yellow Crane Mountain lineage." The moment she said this, everyone else present was stunned. It seemed Pei Yingyao was so disappointed with the Yellow Crane Mountain lineage's conduct that she would say such a thing. If these words were spoken publicly, it would be tantamount to betraying her sect. However, everyone understood. Everything that happened today had to be kept strictly secret. Jin Ming came over and extended another invitation. "Taoist Li, the Yellow Crane Mountain lineage has treated you this way. Why stay in Yellow Crane Immortal City and suffer their abuse? Why not come to my Jin family and become an honored guest elder? You'll be free and unfettered." "Thank you for your kind offer, Taoist Jin." Li Chang'an smiled and tactfully declined. He might not suffer abuse if he went to the Jin family, but free and unfettered, those three words were completely out of the question. Hearing this, Jin Ming didn't press the issue. He cupped his fists, then left with Jin Yue and the other Jin family disciples. After that, the guests began to take their leave one after another. After about a quarter of an hour, most of the outsiders had left, leaving only a few people who were close to Li Chang'an. Chen Huolan didn't stay for long either. "Li the kid, if you have any cultivation problems in the future, you can come find me at the Cyan Cloud sect anytime." "Thank you, elder." "What's there to thank me for? I'm off." With that, Chen Huolan departed with her two disciples. But Su Yuyan stayed behind. In the end, only 5 people remained in the courtyard. Su Fugui and Chu Danyu were cleaning up the spiritual cuisine and wine from the banquet. Zheng Qingqing came over and asked softly, "Chang'an, when will you return to King?" "In 3 days, I think." Li Chang'an thought for a moment. "The foundation establishment ceremony is over. It's time to go back for a visit. When I left back then, I had just broken through to the Qi refining 7th layer, an insignificant ant that no one cared about. Now, I am a foundation establishment great cultivator, a figure on par with an old ancestor. When I go back this time, even the Zheng family's old ancestor will have to welcome me with full honors." As he was thinking, a figure clad in black feathers suddenly appeared in the courtyard. Upon seeing this figure, Chu Danyu immediately cried out, "Master!" "Chen!" The newcomer responded flatly. Li Chang'an, Su Fugui, and the others also reacted at once, all cupping their fists. "Greetings, elder. This is Chu Danyu's master, a genuine golden core master." He waved his hand and said casually, "No need for formalities. My Taoist title is Black Crow. You can call me Master High or Black Crow Master, whatever you prefer." Black Crow. Those 2 words. They made Li Chang'an subconsciously think of Huang He. It seems the 2 of them really were sworn brothers. Even their Taoist titles are somewhat similar. Black Crow Master stared at Li Chang'an for a moment before letting out a soft sigh. "A pity, your talent is a bit lacking. You won't be able to help me in the future." "Elder, why not give me a little more time? My own talent may be poor, but the profound water turtle's talent is more than enough. The profound water turtle will definitely break through to Tier 3 before I do. At that point, I'll have the confidence to face Yellow Crane Mountain head-on. Black Crow Master said flatly, I understand what you mean, but with your talent, more time is useless. In my life, I have seen too many who refuse to accept mediocrity, but one's spiritual root is ultimately determined at birth. For you, with your low-grade spirit root, to want to achieve a golden core, how is that any different from defying the heavens? Hearing this, Chu Danyu hurriedly spoke up. Master, back then, Elder Mo, who created the demon planting technique, had an inferior spirit root, even worse talent than Brother Li. But he still managed to cultivate to the nascent soul realm. Mo Qingquang. Black Crow Master shook his head slightly. In the entire cultivation realm, only one Mo Qingquang has appeared in over 10,000 years. Do you think Li Chang'an is also a once-in-10,000 years genius of comprehension? With that, he lingered no longer. His figure blurred and vanished on the spot. Chu Danyu stood there, looking somewhat dejected. He had hoped to convince Black Crow Master to wait a while longer, for Li Chang'an to grow stronger so they could deal with the Yellow Crane Mountain lineage together. However, Black Crow Master had no faith in Li Chang'an at all. He's most likely still planning to charge in all by himself. Sai, my master is a bit blunt. Brother Li, don't take it to heart. It's nothing. Li Chang'an didn't seem to mind at all. His spiritual root was truly terrible, among the worst of the low-grade spirit roots. It was only slightly better than an inferior spirit root. With talent like that, it was hard for anyone to have confidence in him. Just then, a strange cultivator suddenly appeared at the gate. Chapter 238, Chapter 184, Perfected Master Black Feather, Chang'an Cave Mansion. The person asked respectfully, is Senior Li Chang'an here? I am. Li Chang'an turned and walked to the door. What is it? Senior, a young lady with the surname Mu found me. She asked me to deliver a gift to you and to tell you that she's very sorry, but she can't make it to your foundation establishment ceremony. A young lady with the surname Mu. In an instant, the image of Mu Qiuyan flashed through Li Chang'an's mind. In this region, Mu Qiuyan was already a tribulation cultivator hunted by all. Naturally, she couldn't attend the foundation establishment ceremony. If she were to come, perhaps everyone, out of respect for Li Chang'an as the host, wouldn't act against her. But outsiders would inevitably gossip, saying that Li Chang'an had murky dealings with a tribulation cultivator. Her not coming was also for Li Chang'an's own good. What did she ask you to deliver? This junior doesn't know either, just a box. As he spoke, the person took out a small wooden box. Li Chang'an reached out, took the wooden box, and casually gave him some spirit stones. Thank you for your trouble. It is this junior's honor to be of service to you, senior. The man took the spirit stones, his face full of joy, and hurried away. Li Chang'an closed the courtyard gate and turned to walk into the middle of the yard. He was rather curious. What could Mu Qiuyan have sent me? To be safe, he had Su Fugui and the others step back. He himself retreated deep into the array and controlled a puppet to open the box. The box opened without incident. Inside lay a single jade scroll. Li Chang'an picked up the jade scroll, sent his divine sense into it for a quick look, and a look of surprise immediately appeared on his face. A Tier 2, middle-grade divination inheritance. It was actually an inheritance of skills, and the mysterious skill of divination at that. Inside the jade scroll, Mu Qiuyan had left a message. Brother Li, I know you're a cautious person who likes to hide his strengths and plans before acting. I came across this divination inheritance by chance in a secret realm, and I'm sure you'll like it. In her eyes, Li Chang'an's personality was a perfect match for the divination inheritance. Waking up each day, performing a divination to determine good or bad fortune, and then considering what to do for the rest of the day. But Li Chang'an felt a little helpless. He already received a daily divination, so this inheritance was useless to him. It would have been better if she had sent him some body-refining treasures. Oh well, it's the thought that counts from Qiuyan. Li Chang'an carefully put it away, planning to take a look at it when he had time. He was actually a little curious. What's the difference between this divination technique and my divinations? The next day, Li Chang'an went to the black market and managed to snag a treasure. Afterward, he found Luo Beidong and asked for news about Ancient Wood Evergreen and the Withered Wood Cliff Master. The moment Luo Beidong saw him, he said anxiously, Taoist Li, you're finally back. I've been looking for you these past few days. What's wrong? Why are you in such a hurry? Li Chang'an was surprised and told him to slow down. Luo Beidong immediately explained. Not long ago, he had used his network of contacts to spread the phrase ancient wood evergreen. Before long, 3 different people came looking for him, asking where to find the person who had released the information. That was why he had been looking for Li Chang'an. But Li Chang'an had been like a ghost these past few days, vanished into thin air, nowhere to be seen. After hearing this, Li Chang'an felt a little embarrassed. After his foundation establishment, he had been incredibly busy, receiving guests from major factions almost every day. He simply had no time to come to the black market. Taoist Luo, are those 3 people still around? They are, all of them. Luo Beidong immediately contacted the 3 people for Li Chang'an. A moment later, the 2 of them went into a dark room and waited quietly. While they waited, Luo Beidong brought up the matter of the Withered Wood Cliffmaster. More than 10 days ago, someone had seen the Withered Wood Cliffmaster in the Black Dragon Mountain range again. He looked even more terrifying than before, as if he were nothing but a sallow sheet of human skin stretched over bones, barely resembling a normal person. Clearly, he still hadn't solved the problem of the spirit plant's backlash. The Withered Wood Cliffmaster is only at the Qi refining 9th layer after all, while that spirit plant has reached Tier 2. The difference in power is too great. Resolving the backlash won't be that easy. Taoist Li, I've heard that the Withered Wood Cliffmaster plans to force his way into Foundation establishment. He's gambling on his luck. If he succeeds, he might be able to suppress the spirit plant's backlash. If he fails, he will most likely perish completely. Taoist Luo, do you know where he plans to attempt his Foundation establishment? I don't. The Withered Wood Cliffmaster's movements were too mysterious. No one knew where he was now. Perhaps the next time he appeared, he would already be a Foundation establishment great cultivator. Of course, it was also possible he would die during his attempt at Foundation establishment and never be seen again. Li Chang'an, however, hoped the man would return alive. After all, he wanted to know if that bizarre spirit plant was truly a heaven and earth spirit root. Just as he was thinking this, a burly, powerfully built man suddenly walked into the secret room. His gaze was sharp as it swept over Li Chang'an's body. You're the one who posted that message. I am. Li Chang'an stood up and cupped his fists in a salute. I'm Li Fan, may I ask your name? My surname is Xia. So it's Taoist Xia. Li Chang'an activated his pupil of truth for a closer look and was immediately surprised by what he saw. The man's superficial aura was only at the Qi refining 9th layer. But his true cultivation had reached Foundation establishment. And his true appearance bore some resemblance to the fake pill great power from Yellow Crane Mountain, Zaihu Hong. It was none other than Zaihu Hong's own son. Zaihu Kun. What a coincidence to run into Zaihu Hong's son here of all places. Zaihu Hong had 2 sons in total, named after Qian and Kun. Zaihu Kun was his second son, who had achieved Foundation establishment success a few years ago. Li Chang'an remained impassive, acting as if he hadn't noticed anything unusual. Zaihu Kun asked him, is the last key in your possession? It is. May I see it? No problem. With a thought from Li Chang'an, an ancient key appeared in his hand. On the surface of the key was a single engraved character, Qing. Seeing this key, a sharp glint flashed in Zaihu Kun's eyes. Good, the last key has finally appeared. There's hope of opening the Chang'an cave mansion now. The next instant, a key also appeared in his hand, its surface engraved with a single character, Gu.